My own father signed paperwork that would have let me die on an operating table. He did it to protect a secret he had been hiding for 9 years. I found out with less than 24 hours to spare before my scheduled surgery. What happened in the next day destroyed everything he built his new life on and saved mine. I always believed my father loved me. I believed it without question, without hesitation, the way a daughter should. That belief shattered the moment I saw my name written in his handwriting on those papers. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, in a modest 2-story house on a street lined with maple trees. My mother, Lorraine Calloway, was the kind of woman who baked casseroles for sick neighbors and read to me every single night until I was 12 years old. She was warmth itself. When she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, our whole world tilted sideways. I was 22 when she passed. The grief nearly swallowed me whole, but I kept moving because that is what she would have wanted. I became a pediatric nurse. I poured every ounce of the love she gave me into caring for children who needed someone gentle in their scariest moments. Before she died, my mother set up a family trust worth approximately $800,000. My father, Gerald Calloway, was appointed as the trustee. The purpose was clear. That money was meant to protect me through life's biggest moments: education, medical emergencies, a first home. My mother made sure of it because she knew she would not be there to do it herself. After she passed, my father grieved hard for about 2 years. Then he met Paulette. They married 3 years after my mother's death. I tried with Paulette. I truly did. I invited her to coffee, remembered her birthday, complimented her cooking, even when it was bland. But there was always a coolness behind her smile, a distance she maintained like a fence she never intended to take down. I accepted it. Not everyone bonds the same way. What bothered me more was how my father changed around money. Whenever I asked about the trust, he waved me off. "It is all taken care of, Brooke," he would say. "Your mother wanted me to manage it, and I am managing it." His tone carried a finality that made me feel guilty for even asking, so I stopped. Then, at 31 years old, I got the diagnosis that changed everything. A rare bile duct condition. My gastroenterologist explained that without a specialized surgery, the damage would progress and become life-threatening within a year. The procedure cost approximately $120,000. My insurance covered a significant portion, but the remaining balance came to about $73,000. I called my father and explained the situation. I asked him to authorize a disbursement from the trust. That was exactly what my mother created it for. Gerald sounded supportive on the phone, almost too calm. "Do not worry about a thing, sweetheart," he said. "I will handle all the paperwork with the hospital. You just focus on resting." I believed him. Why would I not? He was my father. 2 weeks later, I arrived at the hospital for my pre-surgery consultation. I expected to review the surgical plan, sign consent forms, and schedule the final date. Instead, a hospital administrator named Ruth Whitfield met me in the hallway outside the surgical office. Ruth was a tall woman with silver-streaked hair and kind but troubled eyes. She guided me into a private conference room and closed the door. "Miss Calloway, I need to discuss something sensitive with you," she said. Ruth explained that my father had indeed submitted paperwork, but it was not a payment authorization. Gerald had filed a do not resuscitate order on my behalf. He had forged my signature. Simultaneously, he withdrew the surgery authorization entirely, citing what he called a family decision to pursue palliative care only. I did not understand the words at first. They floated around me like debris in water. Ruth placed the documents on the table in front of me. There was my name. There was a signature that looked almost like mine, but was not. And at the bottom of every single page, my father's name printed clearly as the authorizing family member. The hospital flagged it because the signature did not match what they had on file for me. Ruth said she felt obligated to tell me directly rather than simply process a correction. I stood in that hallway afterward, holding copies of those forged documents, and my hands would not stop trembling. The man who taught me to ride a bicycle, who walked me to my first day of kindergarten, had signed papers that would have let me die. And he did it behind my back with a smile and a promise that everything was taken care of. I drove to my father's house that same afternoon. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel the entire 30-minute drive. When I walked through the front door without knocking, Gerald was sitting in the living room watching a baseball game. Paulette was arranging fresh flowers on the dining table. I held up the documents. "What is this?" I asked. My voice was barely steady. Gerald glanced at the papers and his face went through 3 expressions in rapid succession: surprise, then something close to fear, then a forced calm. "Brooke, that is just a misunderstanding. A paperwork mix-up. You know how hospitals are." "A mix-up," I repeated. "You forged my signature on a do not resuscitate order. You canceled my surgery. Explain to me how that is a mix-up." He stood and moved toward me with his hands raised, palms out, the way you approach a frightened animal. "You are being emotional right now. Let me sort this out. These things happen with complicated medical paperwork." I looked past him at Paulette. She stood frozen by the dining table, her eyes fixed on the floor. She would not meet my gaze. I noticed things I had overlooked during previous visits. The kitchen had been completely renovated with marble countertops and custom cabinetry. A brand new SUV sat in the driveway. The furniture throughout the house was designer quality, the kind you see in magazine spreads. "I want to see the trust statements," I said. "Every single one from the last 9 years." Gerald's expression hardened. "The trust is not your concern. I am the trustee. Your mother entrusted that responsibility to me, and I have managed it responsibly. It is my money, Dad. Mom left it for me. She left it in my care," he snapped. "And I am telling you to calm down and let me handle things. You are making this into something it is not." I left without another word. There was nothing more to gain from that conversation. His walls were up, and they were made of concrete. The next morning, I contacted Howard Garrison, the attorney who had originally drafted my mother's estate plan. Howard was semi-retired, now living outside of Dayton, but when I explained what happened, his voice changed completely. The casual friendliness vanished and was replaced by the sharp focus of a man who had spent 40 years protecting families from exactly this kind of betrayal. Howard pulled the trust records within 48 hours. What he found was devastating. Over the past 9 years, Gerald had drained nearly $600,000 from the trust. The money had funded Paulette's lifestyle, a vacation property in Hilton Head, South Carolina. Gerald's early retirement at 57 credit card debts, car payments, and home renovations. The remaining balance in the trust was barely $40,000. My mother's $800,000 legacy had been gutted, but Howard was not finished. As he dug deeper into the financial records, he uncovered something that made the blood drain from my face. Gerald had taken out a line of credit totaling $150,000, and he had listed me as a co-borrower. My signature on the loan documents was forged, just like the hospital paperwork. I had been carrying debt I never knew existed. My credit score had been quietly destroyed for years, without a single notification reaching me because Gerald had used an old address. I sat in Howard's office staring at the forged loan papers. 9 years. 9 years of Thanksgiving dinners, Christmas mornings, birthday phone calls. 9 years of my father looking me in the eye while systematically dismantling the future my mother tried to build for me. He did not just steal money. He stole my identity. He weaponized my name against me. And he did it all while telling me not to worry, that everything was taken care of. I made a decision in Howard's office that afternoon. I was not going to crumble. I was not going to beg my father for an explanation or wait for an apology that would never come. I was going to fight with everything I had. Howard connected me with 2 people who became my lifeline. The first was Caroline Pratt, a forensic accountant based in Columbus who specialized in trust fraud cases. The second was Dennis Archer, a criminal attorney with a reputation for being relentless in financial crime prosecutions. Within 72 hours, The three of them had assembled a case file that documented every fraudulent transaction, every forged signature, and every dollar that had been misappropriated from my mother's trust. Simultaneously, I went back to the hospital. Ruth Whitfield helped me formally revoke the Do Not Resuscitate order and reinstate my surgery authorization. She connected me with a patient advocate named Sandra Gibbs, who fast-tracked the administrative corrections. Ruth looked at me before I left her office that day and said, "You are doing the right thing, Brooke." Those 6 words carried me through the hardest week of my life. I filed a police report for identity theft, forgery, and fraud. I filed a formal complaint with the Franklin County Probate Court for breach of fiduciary duty. Every document was organized, every forged signature was flagged, every misused dollar was accounted for. Dennis told me the case was one of the most clear-cut instances of trustee fraud he had seen in 20 years of practice. Then Caroline found something that stopped all of us cold. While tracing the flow of money from the trust, Caroline discovered that Paulette was not merely a passive beneficiary of Gerald's theft. Paulette maintained a separate personal bank account where Gerald had funneled trust money directly over $160,000 across 7 years. Paulette had also co-signed on the Hilton Head property, fully aware that trust funds were being used for the down payment. But the discovery that changed everything was a life insurance policy. Gerald had purchased it just 4 months earlier. The policy was on my life, worth $500,000, and Gerald was listed as the sole beneficiary. 4 months ago was exactly when I first told him about my diagnosis. The room went silent when Caroline laid that document on the table. Dennis leaned back in his chair and exhaled slowly. Howard removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. The canceled surgery. The forged DNR. The life insurance policy. Taken together, they painted a picture so dark that I could barely process it. My father had not just been stealing from me. He had been positioning himself to profit from my death. Dennis told me this elevated the case beyond civil fraud. The police and the district attorney's office would be very interested in this combination of evidence. I confronted Gerald one final time, but on my terms. Dennis accompanied me. We sat in Gerald's living room while I laid every document on his coffee table one by one. The trust statements showing the drained accounts, the forged loan papers, the life insurance policy. Gerald's face collapsed. He stammered. He blamed Paulette. He blamed financial pressure. He said he never intended for anyone to get hurt. He begged me not to involve the police. Paulette, who had been listening from the kitchen doorway, erupted. She stormed into the room, screaming that everything was Gerald's idea, that he had pressured her, that she wanted no part of it. Gerald shouted back that she had spent the money gladly enough. Their alliance, built on my mother's stolen legacy, disintegrated right before my eyes. I stood up, gathered my documents, and walked out the front door. I did not say goodbye. Behind me, I heard Gerald sobbing at the kitchen table. And pulling into the driveway as I reached my car were 2 Franklin County police cruisers, their lights cutting through the early evening air. Gerald Calloway was arrested that evening and charged with forgery, identity theft, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. Paulette was charged as an accessory. The Hilton Head property was seized by the court. The fraudulent loans were voided after a thorough investigation confirmed my signature had been forged on every document. My credit was fully restored within 90 days. The probate court removed Gerald as trustee and appointed an independent fiduciary to manage what remained of my mother's trust. Between the remaining balance and the restitution ordered from Gerald's seized assets, including the Hilton Head property proceeds, I received enough to cover my surgery and begin rebuilding my financial future. I had the surgery 6 weeks later. The procedure was successful. My surgeon told me afterward that if I had waited much longer, the damage might have become irreversible. I thought about that a lot during recovery. I thought about how close I came to losing my life because the one person who should have protected me decided I was worth more dead than alive. Howard Garrison helped me establish a new trust in my mother's name. The Lorraine Calloway Memorial Trust was structured with dual oversight so that no single person could ever have unchecked control over its funds again. It felt like the right way to honor what my mother intended. Months later, Gerald wrote me a letter from the county jail. He said he was sorry. He said the money had spiraled out of control and that Paulette's demands had driven him to desperate choices. He said he loved me and always had. I read the letter once. I folded it and placed it in a drawer. I did not write back. Some doors close not because of hatred, but because of self-preservation. Forgiving someone does not mean you have to let them back into your life. It means you stop carrying the weight of what they did to you. I went back to work at the hospital on a Monday morning in October. The leaves were turning gold and red along the sidewalks of Columbus, and the air had that crisp bite that tells you a new season has arrived. I walked through those hospital doors feeling something I had not felt in a long time. Whole, strong, alive in the fullest sense of the word. My mother could not be there to see it, but I believe she knew. The love she poured into me, the strength she modeled every single day of her life, the trust she created to protect me. Even after she was gone, all of it reached me when I needed it most. My job now is to honor that love by living fully, by protecting myself fiercely, and by never apologizing for choosing my own life over someone else's greed. Here is what I learned through all of this. The people you trust the most can betray you the deepest. But your worth is never determined by those who fail to see it. Protecting yourself is not selfish. It is one of the most loving things you can do. And sometimes the greatest inheritance a parent leaves behind is not money. It is the courage they planted inside you to stand up, fight back, and refuse to let anyone decide that your life does not matter. If this story touched your heart, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to stand up against someone you loved in order to protect yourself? Share your experience in the comments because your story might give someone else the courage to do the same. If this video moved you, please give it a like so more people can find it. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss a story that reminds you of your own strength. And share this video with someone who needs to hear that they are worth fighting for. Thank you for listening and for being here. I wish you the courage to always protect your own life, your own peace, and your own worth, no matter who tries to take them away.